Coming up on Network Africa. Scores of bodies recovered after fire kills over 70 and injures dozens others at a 5-story building in central Johannesburg. Gabon Junta names former head of Presidential Guard General Bryce Ngwema as transition leader. Plus, United Nations sanctions in Mali to end after Russia blocks renewal. Hello and a warm welcome to the program. I'm Millicent Walker in Lagos. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has made his first public comment on the blaze in Johannesburg, calling it a great tragedy. His comments come after a massive fire left a trail of devastation in the central part of the city. At least 73 people died and almost 50 others were injured when the fire engulfed a residential building in Marshalltown. 7 children were among those killed. It is believed that some 200 people were inside when the fire began in the early hours of Thursday morning. Our South Africa correspondent Innocent Samosa reports.
The scene here in Marshalltown is one of absolute devastation. Firefighters have been battling the flames for hours. The fire has been contained but still smoldering. Eyewitnesses have described scenes of chaos and desperation as residents attempted to escape the fire.
I get here, I think it was around about quarter to 2, and I could literally see people jumping off. And obviously there were already bodies that were on the floor, and the paramedics were already, luckily the paramedics were already here, and the fire engine was already here as well.
I think our response was quick because we, in the area of the inner city, we had vehicles which were already on standby, and then we managed to respond to incident.
Meanwhile, the death toll continues to rise. The cause of the fire is still unknown. Many families have been torn apart, and the community is left grappling the scale of this disaster.
The city has to follow up on these buildings, because they're in good structures, but then there's no one to manage, so people will take over.
Marshalltown resident Kenny Mutala describes how he managed to escape the blaze.
It was around 2 o'clock. We saw there was people that were working up, there was a lot of commotion, people running up and down. So when I looked through the window, I saw there was smoke coming out through the building, and we tried to check outside what was going on, and there was a lot of commotion in the passage. There was people that were running up all over. They were looking for an exit because some of the exits were closed, and the actual fire escape was closed. So there was a lot of people, a lot of people smoke, people were suffocated, a lot of people died because of the smoke, because there was a lot of pressure at the gates. Some of the gates were closed.
The time I was there to go outside, I found too much people on the corridors. I failed to go that side because there was too much smoke, too much people, and we failed to open the gates. There's a gate inside there. So we just decided to go and jump on the window.
Officials are expressing their condolences and promising a thorough inquiry. However, no one is taking responsibility for this.
It's not just our problem as government. It's a collective problem because the people are occupying these buildings are our citizens. So if we cannot be considerate of the fact that our attempts are to also assist them in relocation and to also restore our city to its former glory.
Government is here, that's why we are here, and that's why we are here to understand what has happened, what needs to be done, and of course we're going to look internally inside the city for accountability of whether indeed it was truly the negligence of the city or it was the people really not heeding to the call of the city to do the right thing.
73 people confirmed dead. That number could still change. As investigations continues, our thoughts are with the victims and their families in this incredibly difficult time. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samos, Channels Television News.
We'll have more on the latest of that story, but we'll get to that within the course of the bulletin. But let's head to the situation in Gabon. General Brice Nguema, who was the former head of the Presidential Guard in Gabon, has been named the transitional leader of Wednesday's coup d'etat. Now, this announcement was made by the Junta in the country after seizing power from President Ali Bongo. The military takeover has sparked condemnation from ECOWAS and other world leaders. Here's more in this report.
Faisant suite à la réunion de ce jour.
It's been over 24 hours since military officers in Gabon overthrew President Ali Bongo in a coup, following the announcement of Bongo as president for a third term.
Annulé. Les frontières sont fermées jusqu'à nouvel ordre.
President Bongo was placed under house arrest and later released a video on social media asking his friends to come to his aid.
Send a message to all the friends that we have all over the world to tell them to make noise, for the people here have arrested me.
In the interim, the military junta has named Army General Brice Oligui Nguema, who was once the bodyguard of Ali Bongo's late father, as chairman of the Committee for the Transition and Restoration of Institutions.
Faisant suite à la réunion de ce jour.
All the commanders-in-chief and chiefs of staff, as well as the generals in second section of the Gabonese Republic, were present for the meeting. General Brice Oligui Nguema was unanimously appointed chairman of the Committee for the Transition and Restoration of Institutions, president of the transition.
Président du Comité pour la Transition et la Restauration des Institutions.
Meanwhile, in a press statement released in reaction to the coup, the chairperson of the African Union Commission strongly condemned the military takeover and encourages all political, civil and military actors in Gabon to give priority to peaceful political avenues and a rapid return to democratic constitutional order in the country. The United Nations has also condemned the coup and is calling for parties involved to engage in dialogue and uphold the rule of law.
The Secretary General is following closely the evolving situation in Gabon. He notes with deep concern the announcement of the election results amid reports of serious infringements of fundamental freedoms. He firmly condemns the ongoing coup attempt as a means to resolve the post-electoral crisis. The Secretary General calls on all actors involved to exercise restraint, engage in an inclusive and meaningful dialogue, and ensure that the rule of law and human rights are fully respected. He also calls on the National Army and security forces to guarantee the physical integrity of the President of the Republic and his family. The United Nations stands by the people of Gabon.
Ousted President Ali Bongo had ruled Gabon for 14 years, taking over from his late father, who ruled the country for 42 years.
In the meantime, it seems as though Cameroon and Rwanda are going a step ahead after news of the coup broke out in Gabon yesterday. These countries are taking proactive steps by reshuffling their defense portfolios. Cameroonian President Paul Biya made changes to the country's Ministry of Defense. Among the posts reshuffled were the delegates of the presidency in charge of defense, Air Force staff, Navy, and the police. Similarly, Rwanda's Defense Force, RDF, announced on the social media platform X that President Paul Kagame approved the retirement of 83 senior officers. Mr. Kagame also approved the promotion and appointment of some officers to replace the previous office holders. Well, joining us now to talk more about the situation in Gabon is international affairs analyst Yinka Oyeniji. He joins us virtually from East Midlands, the United Kingdom. Welcome to the program. Good to have you. First, what's your assessment of the military takeover in Gabon?
All right, it's what it is, and it's an attempt to snatch power. The only thing being that I don't think it is not successful. I think that it is a success already. I see the United Nations calling it an attempt, but I think that the reality of the matter is we should think several days ahead. This is not only an attempt, it has happened. It's not a surprise, it's not a shock in any respect. But it is what it is, and the aftermath, okay, the consequences of the coup are possibly more interesting than the coup itself, in that you can see that the military is being embraced by the citizens who supposedly only voted in a democratic elections only some moments ago right there in Gabon.
Is that surprising?
It is very surprising in the respect because we would have thought that Gabon with 2 million people was enjoying relative peace along our region. We share borders with Gabon and a few other countries who have now experienced some military intervention in their politics. However, if we can agree to the fact that Africa has been bereft of good leadership for a while, that much has even been attested to by statesmen in Africa, and even the former vice president in Nigeria also said that the problem of Africa is leadership. And if we've had 50 years of rule by the Bongo family, and there's not much difference, even though we have so many resources in that country, it's hardly a shock that the coup has come. The only difference being that it won't seem that it will be something that the people of that country will actively cheer or even support.
And the question is, you know, one wonders, with that number of years, was that a democracy?
Well, it's we need to take a look at democracy again. I'll tell you, the very first think tank that was part of that discussed whether democracy as we know it in Africa is the government we need was a think tank at Oxford University that was convened by Toyin Cole, who is the gubernatorial candidate in Rivers State. So it convened a couple of people in Africa from different sectors, and we had to look at it. Is democracy rightly the government that Africa is looking for? Does it meet the needs of the people? A reflection of the democracy we practice, which is from Western powers. Is it what we need? Is it what will work? So we have to take a look at democracy again. We've had XYZ number of years, even in Nigeria, we've had over 20 odd years of so to speak, democratic rule without intervention, and yet it doesn't seem to deliver the dividends of democracy. In my own personal experience, some of the best years in Lagos State for me was when a certain Mba Buba Marwa was governor of Lagos State, and even the means of transportation that is common today in Lagos, the tricycle is named after him. That was when we had Operation Sweep and all of that. So it would seem as though, even in terms of military rule, Africa may enjoy its best progress. So we need to look again. Is this a type of democracy that every African yearns for? Is it the one that will deliver dividends to us? Is it time to have a clean break from our colonial masters who brought this type of government to us in the first place? So these questions rage at the moment, and we have to consider them for the future.
Looking at what happened in Gabon, we've seen Rwanda and Cameroon sort of carrying out major changes in the military, which may not be connected or unconnected to what has happened in Gabon. But what do you think other countries on the continent are thinking of? What should they be thinking of doing to prevent this from becoming a trend?
I think that we are playing to the gallery. That's what we are doing, okay? Those who are planning the coup didn't wake up. It wasn't an accident. I said this only a few weeks ago when we were talking about the coup in other parts of African continent, especially Niger, on this program. I said that it can't be the last. It's not the last that will happen. Look, understand something. Even people believe that those who are elected into office as of today snatch government. So the citizens don't care what type of garment you are wearing, whether it's military or whether it's camouflage or you are wearing traditional attire. It don't matter. What matters the most is what kind of government are you administering, okay? What dividends of governance can we see, even in the private sector as well? So whether we change our military guards or we reshuffle the service chiefs, whatever we do, that's playing to the gallery, okay? whether they are wearing military uniform or not. Sani Abacha became, so to speak, a civilian president of Nigeria in the twilight of his career. So it don't matter whether we change service chiefs or we disengage or we retire military heads, if you like. What we need to do is start trying to find out what the people are asking for. And I will say a bit of it. The military boys in the J are saying it's about time to start to mine our own resources for our own use. Okay, this also includes our foreign policy. Would Africa continue to pander to the whims and caprices of colonialists, okay, or Western powers, or will we start to look inwards to develop our own resources for our own use? Why should we have ISIS in Africa? And why should we have a certain private military company from Russia help us secure Africa? These are not normal, and then they are absurd in every respect. But these are also the factors that show that democracy is not working for us. So whether we change service chiefs or not, the people are not happy. Some people thought that a revolution would happen, but the people are not even revolting yet. It's a military revolting. So except we start to deliver those dividends at home in Nigeria, we need the present president to start to look at giving fillip to his economic agenda, okay? What infrastructural development can we achieve in the short term beyond just palliatives? That's what will appease the residents and citizens of Africa to trust in their own so to speak, democratically elected governments to continue to be in office.
One other big question is Africa, are they ready? And this is, depending, doesn't matter the regime that we're seeing, the one that existed and the one that's taking over. But we'd like to thank you. It's a good place to leave it at this time. International Affairs Analyst Yinka Oyeniji, thanks for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome back. Let's take you back to our top story, the Johannesburg building fire. Joining us for more is our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia. She joins us from Johannesburg. Hi, Betty. What more can you tell us about this tragic incident coming out from the central city? What do we know actually happened?
Right now, according to the city manager, that's Floyd Briggs, there is no preliminary report. Nobody knows yet. They're still doing recovery, probably of bodies, because they're still trying to get access. It's a 5-floor building, and they're going floor by floor, trying to get who they can get. But according to the emergency services, about 1 a.m., when we were still talking about the earth tremor, the earthquake recorded in some parts of Johannesburg last night, then this happened. And many people got to know much later in the day or in the early hours of the morning. And I started, no one knows where it started from, but people woke up and tried to get out. Many of the people who died of smoke inhalation because they couldn't get out of the building. And the stampede, trying to go through wherever, caused a lot of problems. So those who managed to find other ways out, jump through the window or through other places, because fire escapes were locked. And we understand that in the case, the floor where many people died, the door was locked and many couldn't get out. So no one knows yet, according to the authorities, actually caused the fire. But there's point you have 75 people dead. The number has gone up. 66 of them are adults and about 11 are children, and the number could still rise. And the number of people are in the hospital at the moment.
And we are hearing that, predominantly the number of them there are immigrants, so identifying them might be difficult. Is it that government, the authorities didn't know that there was that much number of people, immigrants, in such a place?
Well, you hear the likes of Operation Dudula and all those activists agitating against foreign nationals. And the problem that they raise all the time is the issue of undocumented immigrants or undocumented immigrants in the country. So you have a few. One of the people we spoke to says he's South African. You have a lot, and another one, the lady in that report is Malawian. So you have a lot of foreign nationals, we understand, in that place, which was initially meant to be shelter leased to a not-for-profit organization called the Sindiso Ministries. But because of the state of repair or disrepair of the building, the not-for-profit organization pulled out, and the people hijack buildings and pay rent. Foreign nationals, I'm going to stand over 200 people were living in that place. According to the lady, they pay about 1,300 a month. Put that in naira to give you context, is about 65,000 naira a month. That's what they were paying. And the building hijack is a phenomenon the government is still trying to deal with in the country. When they see buildings in a state of disrepair or abandoned, they take the buildings over and start taking rent from people. Of course, people need shelter, and the state of such buildings is always a problem. And now we have a lot of finger pointing from the city to the NGOs to whoever they can blame now. But no one knows what actually started that fire. But it's not the only building. There are others like that. And I hope the government will do something about it.
Many thanks, Betty. We'll look to you to more developments. Our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, for us there.
Thank you.
We'll move on to other stories. Russia has vetoed efforts to keep a team of United Nations experts in Mali who had accused foreign fighters of involvement in widespread abuses in the military-run West African country. 13 of the UN Security Council's 15 members backed a proposal on Wednesday that would have extended sanctions for 1 year on Mali and would have kept the experts in place. However, Russia exercised its veto power at the UN meeting to block the extension proposal led by France and the United Arab Emirates. China abstained from the vote. Independent UN sanctions monitors reported to the Security Council this month that Mali's troops and its foreign security partners believed to be Russia's Wagner mercenary group are using violence against women and other grave human rights abuses to spread terror.
Those against. The United States is disappointed by the outcome of today's vote. Once again, Russia has imposed its will on the Council in the face of the opposition of countries from the region. The Council's failure to agree on the urgent and necessary renewal of Mali's sanctions regime due to Russia's actions threatens peace and security, not just in Mali, but the entire region. The draft resolution has not been adopted owing to the negative vote of a permanent member of the Council.
The United Kingdom deeply regrets Russia's reckless use of the veto. This will reduce the Council's oversight and engagement on Mali's peace process at a critical juncture.
Россия проголосовала против подготовленного проекта резолюции о продлении малийского санкционного режима. К сожалению, несмотря на то, что мы...
Pots and pans were brought out of the kitchen not as a weapon but as objects for protest. Dozens of Nigerian women gathered outside the French embassy in Miami with one demand: to make noise, well, loud noise in this case, about French operations in the country. Footage shows the protesters waving Nigerian flags, banging pots, calling for France to move its troops and military base from the country. Niger's Junta, which seized power in a coup on July the 26th, has ordered French Ambassador Sylvain Ite to leave the country as relations between the West African country and its former colonial ruler continue to deteriorate. Like recent coups in neighboring Burkina Faso and Mali, the military takeover in Niger came amid a growing wave of anti-French sentiment, with some locals accusing the European country of interfering in their affairs. Now from there we head to a soothing sight to behold when a rare blue supermoon lit up in the skies around the world, and African countries like Egypt was not left out of that experience. The blue supermoon appeared in Egypt's skies Wednesday, illuminating the Giza pyramids. The moon is considered a supermoon when it reaches the closest point to Earth in its orbit, making it look much larger from Earth, increasing 7% in diameter. A blue moon does not refer to its color, but when there are two full moons in a single month, the next blue supermoon will not be seen until the 2030s. The last supermoon for more than a decade. That's Network Africa at this time. Many thanks for watching. I'm Millicent Walker.